For the College of Charleston and Envision, South Carolina, I'm Brian McGee. I'm here today with Judge Alex Sanders. Judge Alex Sanders has been a force of nature in South Carolina politics and public life for decades. He's been a judge. He's been president of the College of Charleston. He's been a Senate candidate, and he's been the founder of the Charleston School of Law. We're so happy to have you here today, Judge.
Thank you.
Okay. Let me begin by asking you a big question about your time here, your history with this state, your love affair with this state. As you look at the state over the whole course of 30 years, what changes do you see? What strikes you as a striking bit of evolution for this state?
Well, what you refer to as my love affair with South Carolina has really been more of a bittersweet relationship. Sometimes I think it's a love-hate relationship. And what changes have I noticed in South Carolina over the course of my lifetime? Unfortunately, precious few. Now, of course, there have been superficial changes. We make more money, and we have taller buildings, and our race relations no longer deteriorate to confrontations in the street, although that may be right around the corner. The progress in that area is really, sometimes I think, entirely superficial. There's a long way to go to truly socially integrate South Carolina and to make real progress economically and culturally.
Do you see that progress being interrelated, that we have to make progress in terms of race relations and diversity in order to make the economic gains we need to for all of our citizens?
Yes, but it's more to it than that. It's more to it than that. Okay. What we all strive for is a livable society, right? Mm-hmm. And that means fairness. And in terms of economic progress, what we lack, what we woefully lack, what no one can dispute, is schools. Education is the engine to progress. And South Carolina is woefully deficient in that area, from public education to the institutions of higher education. And it is a sad thing to observe, particularly if you do love South Carolina from time to time. Just compare us to the progress of North Carolina, Georgia. Not any reason why we should be equal to those states, but we are not. As much as we would like to say we are not. For example, where is the Charlotte in South Carolina? Where is the Atlanta? Well, compare the schools, the two states, and even those schools in the area of public education are not paragons of virtue, but they are so far superior to South Carolina, they aren't even comparable. We don't have a University of North Carolina or Duke, or even a University of Georgia, or an Emory. Just don't have them.
Now, you've been a higher education leader for years. You helped to grow the College of Charleston, to make the College of Charleston a prominent and nationally ranked institution. So you've been a force of progress on these questions. Where do you think we need to go with higher education to get the same kind of achievements they've had in Georgia and North Carolina?
Well, we need two things. One is we need money, and the other is we need imagination. And we've been lacking in both. You referred to the fact that the college grew while I was president. Actually, that was the least of what I tried to do. In fact, I'm not so sure I didn't devote more effort to trying to keep it from growing. It grew of its own. It's an enormously popular place, as you know, and students from all over the country want to come here. We profit mightily from the fact that we're in Charleston, one of the great cities of the world, and everybody wants to live in Charleston. That applies to students too. The college still needs to be recognized by the people of South Carolina as worthy of financial support, adequate financial support.
And is that true across the system of South Carolina Public University?
Sure.
To provide this critical economic development?
Across the system. And then of course, to get that money, we have to demonstrate that we are in a position to wisely spend it. I think the College of Charleston is an outstanding institution of higher learning, but it's not quite William and Mary, is it? Nor is it Davidson, nor is it Emory.
And that will require public support as well?
Sure.
Okay. Let's talk a bit about the Charleston School of Law. Only the second law school founded here in South Carolina. And yeah, you were a central mover in making the Charleston School of Law possible. Talk to us a bit about why we thought the state needed a second law school.
Well, the need is, I'll come to in a minute. Mm-hmm. I wanted to establish a law school at the College of Charleston when I was here. Why? Just because I'm a lawyer. We don't have one law school in the state. Thought it'd be nice to have one as a part of the College of Charleston. I ran head on into the Commission on Higher Education that was determined that we would not duplicate professional education in South Carolina. One law school, there'd never be but one. The fact that a second medical school was built in Columbia, and actually I had a good bit to do with that because I was in the legislature in Columbia at the time. Turned out in the view of many to be a mistake. It diluted the services of the two schools and didn't produce the kind of result that we wanted. So the Commission on Higher Education was just determined that the College of Charleston and nobody else have a law school. So that was that. I then attempted to establish a 501c3, that is a nonprofit institution, and none of the agencies of banking would lend us any money. They just weren't familiar with the concept of a nonprofit borrowing money. So we just incorporated it the good old American way, free enterprise as personified by Wall Street, sold stock in it, and yeah, it is. Now, we took a big chance in doing that. I mean, it could have failed. I'm happy to say it succeeded, but it could have failed. The need was there. I knew that statistically, South Carolina had fewer lawyers per capita than almost any state in the nation. Some people said, we don't need more lawyers. And my response to that is, of course we do. Some people are having to share a lawyer. There's not even enough lawyers for everybody to have one. So I knew there was enough demand. Also, more seriously, we had students that graduated from the College of Charleston, well qualified to go to law school. I know who's well qualified because I've been involved in legal education. But they couldn't get in the University of South Carolina either because they weren't one of the 250 best qualified, or in some cases best connected. So I knew that there was a demand, and these bright young students graduated from the College of Charleston often had to go out of state. Although I will say there were more College of Charleston graduates at the Carolina Law School than any other school except Carolina itself. So I'm not suggesting there was any discrimination against the college. It's just there's only so many places. So I knew there was a demand for it. What I didn't know is whether they would be willing to pay $30,000, $35,000 a year for it. And it turned out that a good number of them were, and then we were able to establish scholarships for others. It has succeeded, as is obvious, I think, to the community. Succeeded in many ways, but one way is restoring King Street to its previous glory. I don't know if you remember King Street before the law school, but it was a vastly different place.
When you look at the Charleston School of Law and its graduates, what are they doing for the state that the state didn't have before?
Well, the law school is unique among American law schools in that it is dedicated to the practice of law as a means of rendering a public service. What are they doing? They are all required to engage in free legal services while they're in law school. And they are providing thousands of hours of free legal services during the course of their term in law school. Faculty has that requirement too. Then when they graduate, if we have succeeded in educating them to that goal in life, they're joining opportunities for public service there. That doesn't mean they have to be Mother Teresa's when they graduate, but they join law firms that have pro bono sections, participate in that, and then a good number of them go into public service directly through public defender offices, prosecutors' offices, legal aid, that kind of thing.
As you think about the young people you've worked with over the years, And going beyond legal education for a minute, for students who are coming into our universities and colleges all over South Carolina and graduating, what advice would you give them moving
Well, in
forward?
the first place, they're the best we've ever had. It's a far superior generation to the generations that have preceded them. The greatest generation, to the contrary, notwithstanding, we got the greatest generation now in our schools. If we just don't stifle them, if we just don't fail to educate them, we have every reason to believe that they will be the significant future of South Carolina. Of course, it's easy to fail them. It's easy to kill their imagination, give them an education of mediocrity, consign them to the same sort of life that so many of their ancestors have had to live. What advice would I give them? Well, Adam just gave some advice, and that was to ignore all advice. That's not bad advice right there. He advised them to work hard, and of course that's good advice too. But I suppose what I would advise them to do is stay in South Carolina. There's more to accomplish here than it is in many other places, although it is going to require harder work here than it might in other places. And exercise that imagination. Try not to do what we've always done, because if we always do what we've always done, we'll always get what we've already got, won't we? That's by definition.
You spent time in the state legislature. If you were to go back in front of the legislature today and have the opportunity to make a rip-roaring speech to those individuals, you've already talked about the need for better funding of higher education and K-12 education. What else would you tell them that they need to do to set up future success in South Carolina to allow us to be the world-class state that so many South Carolinians hope we will become?
The first thing I would do would be to thank them for serving, because I know what that's like. And sometimes I feel that was 15 wasted years of my life, but other times I realize that I learned a lot during that period of time, even if I didn't accomplish much. I would advise them to enjoy their colleagues. It's a great cross-section of the state, and try to work together instead of in opposition to each other. And philosophical issues are so few and far between, they aren't worth dividing us.
Looking forward, you spent years as a distinguished servant of this state in the love-hate relationship you just described. We know that education is important to you. What else do we need to do to make South Carolina a world-class state in every important respect, so that we're not looking up at other states, that other states are following our lead?
Get on the right side of history for a change. That's what we should do. Take down the Confederate flag and take it out of our heads too, and look forward instead of backwards. And Charleston is a good place to do that because we're surrounded by history. But also, we can learn from history that it normally fails.
That's a good line. Can you elaborate?
Well, I think I'll leave that as it lies.
Okay. Judge, if you look at today's South Carolina children and the opportunities they may have growing up, are there any particular areas that you'd especially ask them to pursue, to get excited about? Law is a wonderful career. What other careers might they think about in a 21st century economy?
Of course, any advice I gave a young person today would depend on the young person, because they're not all alike by any means. But if I could give some generic advice, it would be read the classics. Read the classics.
Get that great liberal arts education.
Right, embrace that liberal arts education. At the College of Charleston, we have a great business school, but our business majors are required to take more liberal arts courses than business courses, and that's a wise requirement. And of course, Santiana said, those who ignore the lessons of history condemned to repeat them. I sometimes think anybody ever heard that quote is condemned to repeat it, so I'm a little reluctant to do that too, but there is something in the study of the past.
Sometimes business leaders express concern about liberal arts education. They think that higher education ought to be more jobs focused, ought to be more professionally oriented. What do you say to those folks?
No business leader ever convinced me of that.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, when we had interviews on this campus for jobs, I've had more than one bank executive, for example, tell me that he'd rather interview our best liberal arts graduates than he would our finance graduates, because he said we can teach them finance, but we can't teach them the sort of thinking patterns that they learn in a competent instruction in the liberal arts.
Some folks who might be listening to you today might not realize that you have considerable expertise in thinking about how baseball's rules have evolved and changed over time, and you have some rather strong opinions about America's pastime. Can you talk to me a bit about the infield fly rule?
You know, I get more credit for being a baseball nerd than I'm entitled to get. It's just that this infield fly rule, it represents, to my way of thinking, many aspects of in its application and its involvement as the law does. But let me assure you, no one would be interested in that except a baseball nerd.
Designated hitter, for it or against it?
Oh, I'm for it for one league and against it for the other.
You like a little variety from one league to the other?
That's right.
15 teams one way, 15 the other?
That's the way we, learn about the rules and what rules are the best. What's the best way to play a game? By having the experimental opportunities, the laboratories of the big leagues. Envision, South Carolina, world class, globally connected. Sometimes I think entirely superficial. There's a long way to go to truly socially integrate South Carolina and to make real progress economically and culturally.
Do you see that progress being interrelated, that we have to make progress in terms of race relations and diversity in order to make the economic gains we need to for all of our citizens?
Yes. Unfortunately, precious few. Now, of course, there have been superficial changes. We make more money, and we have taller buildings, and our race relations no longer deteriorate to confrontations in the street, although that may be right around the corner. The progress in that area is really something, but it's more to it than that. It's more to it than that. Okay. What we all strive for is a livable society, right? And that means fairness. And in terms of economic progress, what we lack, what we woefully lack, what no one can dispute, is schools. Education is the engine to progress. And South Carolina is woeful.
With this state, as you look at the state over the whole course of 30 years, what changes do you see? What strikes you as a striking bit of evolution for this state?
Well, what you refer to as my love affair with South Carolina has really been more of a bittersweet relationship. Sometimes I think it's a love-hate relationship. And what changes have I noticed in South Carolina over the course of my lifetime?
For the College of Charleston and Envision, South Carolina, I'm Brian McGee. I'm here today with Judge Alex Sanders. Judge Alex Sanders has been a force of nature in South Carolina politics and public life for decades. He's been a judge. He's been president of the College of Charleston. He's been a Senate candidate, and he's been the founder of the Charleston School of Law. We're so happy to have you here today, Judge.
Thank you.
Okay. Let me begin by asking you a big question about your time here, your history with this state, your love affair